Good day to all. My name is Cindy, and I'll be presenting my research paper together with Prof. Jamilah Ahmad on the analysis of Hofstede's cultural dimensional model and its influence on the practice of public relations by multinational corporations in Malaysia. Right. It might seem as though I started speaking with a blank PowerPoint slide in front of the screen right now, but there are actually a bunch of things on the slide that you just can't seem to see it yet. In the middle, there is actually a double-story house, and on the right-hand side, there is a sleeping cat, and on the left-hand side, a little boy is actually playing badminton with his dad. It's interesting how you can't see things when the context they are surrounded by something that makes them seem invisible. So you just needed help to see it. Right, so this slide is pasted with a white rectangle over the top of the things you can't see. So it's just like culture, right? They are visible to an outside observer. The cultural meaning of something like how, for example, a Japanese is greeting someone or thanking someone by bowing down is invisible. However, it lies in the way the expressions are interpreted by the insiders of the culture. So our ideas, our values, our acts, and our emotions are culture products. We are individuals under the guidance of cultural patterns, historically created systems of meaning. It is apparent that how we function and communicate in society depends on the given culture and society to which we belong. Now, from there, we can challenge that culture affects the way we do things, whether in our daily lives or at work. But it's difficult to challenge something if you have been taught not to see it, right? So this research is basically about understanding culture and its influence on the practice of public relations, specifically by multinational corporations in Malaysia. Okay, I'll be doing an analysis of this using Hofstede's culture dimensional model, which I mentioned, and it consists of five dimensions: power distance, uncertainty, avoidance, masculinity, femininity, individualism, collectivism, long term versus short term, as you can see in the screen right now, and how these dimensions influence the way public relations practitioners practice what they do in the MNCs in Malaysia through the Hofstede's cultural dimensional model. And from this, I am putting together a picture that will illustrate the findings of a representation of Malaysia, not largely, but specifically on MNCs. And then, and we then can use this picture to compare with the other pictures from the findings from other countries, which they have a lot as compared to a country, Malaysia. Um, Other researchers have done to analyze culture and PR. So my hope is that in this research in this field will point toward a clearer understanding of whether the profession can be practiced in a similar way in different countries or whether adaptation would give even more value. So and as for the benefits of academic, the literature for public relations and culture will be further extended to provide insights to the current body of knowledge. So I'm going to explain very quickly on the outline of my proposal paper. So the keywords here are culture, PR practice, MNCs, and Malaysia. Now we'll look into the what, why, when, and who. So what exactly is the problem and what made me make this research? Should multinational corporations which operate in different countries adopt different approaches when it comes to public relations practice? So that's one question that I'm asking myself even when I work for a multinational company. Secondly, to why. Why is it necessary for this research to take place? Because MNC operates in different countries, they are bound to different kind of conditions and demands. from stakeholders ranging from employees to media, the government, and others. And with all these considerations and intricacies, it is important to note how MNCs handle its communication with its many stakeholders and the public. So this is adapted from Nye and Cochrane, 1987, and also cited from Johnson et al., 2015. So next is when. When is this research timely? Is this research timely? With this research done in Malaysia, other researchers will be able to use the findings for future research on cross-cultural comparison and evaluates its differences and or similarities. And of course, finally, who? Why public relations, not marketing or advertising? So the field of public relations is chosen as a field of research in this study because it encompasses a wide aspect of roles and practice which provides opportunities for a good research to be built upon on the study of how culture affects these areas. Communication is also a big part of public relations, and culture affects communication and vice versa. All right, so the problem statement is from the professions. I'll look into three perspectives. The first one is from the professions perspective. So scholars like Ovid and Booth pointed out that public relations activities or campaigns of an international corporation needed some form of adaptation in order to fulfill or to deliver expectations and needs of the local public. So then there is a need to research on whether standardization or adaptation is needed. So that is the profession perspective. On the other hand, for academics perspective, academicians have equal concerns on whether the practice and principles of public relations can be applied to all countries and if it's possible to be standardized in a body of knowledge to be used across the globe. And of course, for other perspective would be organizations throughout the world may be adapting existing models without a complete knowledge that these models may not entirely apply or fit the organization in that particular country because of the different culture. Now, this is especially a concern for non-Western companies as public relations models are primarily developed by Western countries. So, moving forward, I will talk about the research objectives, and which is to examine the challenges involved when public relations approaches and strategies are localized by multinational corporations in Malaysia. And secondly, is to understand the processes and activities of public relations in an international campaign executed in Malaysia as compared to other countries where its subsidiaries are operating in. And of course, thirdly, is to analyze how culture influenced the practice of public relations in multinational corporations in Malaysia using Hofstede's culture dimensional model. So, my research questions would be the first one are localized public relations approaches and strategies necessary to be adopted in order to meet local conditions. Okay, where public relations is concerned, what are the processes and communications involved for an international campaign between the main headquarter and its other subsidiaries in its different countries? And thirdly, would be is there a significant relationship between Hofstede's culture dimensions and the practice of public relations based on the global public relations principles from the excellence theory? So these are my research questions. And moving on will be my methodology. I use the qualitative research methodology. So in this open-ended, in-depth approach, we're taken to interview consultants and practitioners related to the scope of study. So interviews enable the researcher to attain direct quotes. So that's very important. From the interviews about their knowledge, experiences, opinions, and even emotions and feelings can be analyzed in depth. And of course, my sample selection would be the scope focuses on public relations practitioners and consultants who are related or affiliated with a multinational corporation or an agency that handles MNC's accounts. So the samples were selected based on their understanding of the practice of a public relations practitioner in MNC, and where their experience will give depth to the findings of this study. And of course, my instrument would be the way the questions are developed will take into consideration of the relationship between Hofstede's dimensional model, and it will be done in the respective participants' office and work settings. So these are the methodologies for this research. So I think that's it for my presentation on this on my paper. So again, thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for your time. And I hope this paper will go further through this conference. Thank you very much.